Crafty Collector has the second question. I've taken a long time to get around to the challenge of getting a job done versus getting the job perfect. What is your approach to drawing the finish line and saying the job is complete? That is client management, and that's client expectation. One of the most difficult jobs I ever did was building a museum quality car display for a potato chip company. And they just wanted me to build a beautiful 1/48 scale model of their first delivery truck. And the first one I built was not museum quality. And the client gave it back to me and said, I need it literally twice as good as this. And then I spent a long time doing that. Which is to say museum quality work is exacting and very unforgiving. Knowing what your client wants is the key to knowing when the job is done. And you shouldn't be working harder than that. Within reason. We all have professional respect for ourselves, and we want our work to show the best side of ourselves. One of the funny jokes about Industrial Light and Magic when I worked there was that even the backside of all the props and sets and pieces looked amazing because it was all machined aluminum because it was ILM and it had to be perfect. And like, I kind of get that, right? Everything you build goes out there and talks about you and advertises you. And so within reason, sometimes you definitely do want to over-deliver a job, but you don't want to over-deliver to the point of not making money. That's where that line between getting the job done and getting the job perfect is. And that's also about talking to clients and disappointing clients. Oh my God. I remember once bidding a job for a party. I was building a bunch of stuff for a huge Christmas party in San Francisco. And the guy let me bid, oh my God, let's see. I bid 10 pieces of life-size topiary and a book that you would walk through that was Dickens' Christmas Carol, 7 feet high, open pages, curled pages where I hand-lettered the opening folio of A Christmas Carol. And for those 10 pieces of topiary and that book, I think I charged $750 total. It was ridiculous. No one should have let me bid that little for a job. And as I was finishing it, I had like 6 other things to complete for that guy. And I was like, hey, listen, I finished the topiary and the book, but I really need to talk to you about the rest of this because I'm not sure I can deliver it in time. Because I was like hemorrhaging money on this job because at that point, I had no idea how to bid. And I had bid way too low. And this guy was so gleefully taking my work that when I called and said, hey, I want to talk about the other 6 items, he stopped payment on a check he had given me a week before, emptied out my bank account because I had spent all that money on stuff for this gig. Oh my God. In the end, I managed to get paid. What was funny is I had just moved in with an ex-girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend. She was not an ex-girlfriend when I moved in with her. I had just moved in with this woman that I was dating when my bank account got emptied out by this client who stopped payment on the check and then didn't return my calls for 10 days. It was such a nightmare. This is literally the moment I took up meditation. It's when I started meditating because I was so stressed out I could barely see. But I do remember my girlfriend at the time going, is this what it's going to be like to live with you all the time? Because this is pretty intense. And I'm like, no, this is not a representative sample of me. Have you ever been stiffed on a job? David O asks. And how do you recognize the signs to avoid it? Yes, I have been stiffed on a job and it still stings. And you're going to get stiffed on a job. You're going to think about those people that stiffed you on jobs, and you're going to think about them and wonder, how do they sleep with themselves? How did they know? How did they knowingly ask me to do stuff and then change it and modify it and make it better and then disappear, change their phone number, left town? I've had all of that. Again, it's the cost of business, and in the freelance life, you are going to get stiffed on jobs. There'll be clients that don't pay you for weeks, even though you said net 30, net 15, or payment on delivery. Yeah, that's just going to happen. And you do get to recognize the signs of a difficult client. And it's literally the first, you should be thinking about the interaction with the client every second that it's happening, because it's information, and it's really important information to you professionally. How is the client in the bid? So this is a story I love to tell. Early on working for Jamie, I took a call. Client was giving me drawings, asking me to make drawings and asking me to bid on this job. And I made some drawings. Jamie approved them. I sent them to the client. The client wanted something different. I made some new drawings, sent them to Jamie. Jamie approved them. I sent them to the client. The client had more changes. And then Jamie was like, make them go away. And I was like, why? And he said, if they're this much of a pain in the ass in the bidding process, they're going to be a nightmare when we're actually doing the job. And I think they're going to be super cheap with us. And I made that job go away. And Jamie was like, this is Jamie's first rule. However they are in the beginning is how they'll be all the way through, which is, to be fair, a really, really great axiom to follow. So pay attention to how the client interaction is going, how your conversation with the client is going. Oh, also, oh my goodness, this is another one. You have to remember your client, whoever it is, your client is going to ask you questions about the job that will make you question if they've listened to a single word that you have said through the entire relationship. What you need to do as the freelancer in that moment is realize that they're attempting to solve a problem, and you have to figure out what that problem is. What they said to you isn't important. It's not nearly as important as actually figuring out what their real question is. You will make something mechanical for a client, and then they'll go, oh, I had this. An effects supervisor for a giant movie. I was making a building that was huge in scale. This building was this big, but it was going to, in scale, it was going to be 2,000 feet tall. And it was raining. And the effects supervisor came through. This is the guy running all the effects for a giant Hollywood blockbuster. And he said, is the model waterproof? Because this guy somehow thought that we were going to shoot this model wet when it was 4,000 feet tall. It was going to end up looking like the dam burst from Superman 1 with Christopher Reeves, where the water droplets are like the size of trucks pouring over this, like, what must have been a 1/4 scale dam. There was no way we were ever going to shoot that model wet. But so your clients there will always be cases in which your clients don't understand how the process works. I've made countless models that I showed to the client in the primer gray and said, I've just primered this, so it's just for shape. And their first comment is, I don't like the color. And you're like, and this is when you have to remember as a freelancer, and I'm speaking really specifically to freelance makers of things, makers of music, makers of poetry, makers of writing, of buildings, of carpentry, of clothing, whatever. But as a maker of a thing, you are immersed in this field and you understand the parameters of that field. Your client doesn't. They just want an object. They know so much less than you. So you really have to remind yourself of that when they ask you questions and you're like, are they genuinely stupid? I don't think they're stupid. They didn't strike me as dumb. It's not that they're stupid. It's not at all. It's actually just specifically that they don't know the language to converse about the thing that you're making. So part of client relation and setting expectation is helping them understand how this process will work, and hopefully getting the two of you aligned to better serve what the client needs and also, make you some dough. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.